Hi there, easy betters. Welcome to my match of the weekend report. Now, I'm going to think a little bit out of the box because theoretically it's not the weekend. It's going to be, of course, the Monday night clash at Wembley. It's the pick of the weekend for sure. It sees Tottenham in an attempt to derail Manchester City. Of course, at the moment they're unbeaten and Manchester City go to Wembley still buoyed with confidence. Not so Tottenham because, of course, they had another poor result by their standards in Champions League action. But let's start with some positive news for Tottenham fans, and that is that their home record in the Premier League and first class football against Manchester City is not bad reading, actually. So one has to bear in mind, of course, that the majority of these matches would have been at White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane. But for what it's worth, 67 matches there at home for Tottenham, and of those they've won as many as 34, so that's actually above 50% win rate against Manchester City at home. There have been 16 draws and 17 losses, but of course that is the old era. The modern era, well, we know how useful Manchester City are now. They've won a couple of championships since all of those stats came to pass, so perhaps that inflates Tottenham's chances. Also, as I mentioned, Tottenham, fresh off another disappointing result, they were going along really nicely against PSV in the second half. They were controlling the game and they managed once again to derail themselves, as indeed they did when they were 1-0 up against Inter at the San Siro. And of course, that was 5 minutes to play. They ended up losing that game. So for me, tactically, there's a problem with Spurs. They don't seem to get the job done when they need to. They get themselves in front. This is not a recent problem. I'm reminded, and I've told you before, about the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley last year when they were cruising along in control of the game against Manchester United and ended up conceding and then going out of the FA Cup and missing out on the final. So what is the problem there? Is it a tactical problem for Pochettino? Is it the personnel? Is it because they didn't buy anybody in the off-season? I don't know what it is, but it's hard to select Tottenham to win that game. If they can get a draw, perhaps they'll consider it a point gain because of Manchester City's record. So now I'm going to bring in some stats for you which show you why Manchester City really are going to be very hard to beat. Here's their away record this season. They've played 4. They are unbeaten. They have drawn 2 games away from home, but in both cases they didn't concede many goals. So their away goal for and against record reads like this. 4 matches played for Manchester City on the road. They have scored 8 goals. And they have conceded only 1 in those 4 matches. Of course, we know that their home record is impeccable, but they're not at home. As far as Tottenham at home, it's not that great either. They seem to be struggling to score. Yes, they've only played the 3 games because of the Wembley factor, of course, but they've scored 5 goals and conceded 3. So what can we read into that? Well, Manchester City have an abundance of talent, and it'll be hard for me, even being a Spurs supporter, not to suggest that Manchester City will continue to roll. The best I can do is give them a point at Wembley, which I'm not going to do. I think Manchester City will win the game, but if you are a Tottenham fan like me, perhaps the safest way, if you want to protect your heart and use your head, is to go for total goals. And the other week I got it wrong. I didn't think there were going to be goals in the Chelsea-Manchester United match. There were. Hopefully I'm not wrong this time, suggesting that there will be goals at Wembley on Monday night. But even Spurs fans, I think if they look at the stats and what's happening in world football at the moment and the current form of both the sides, it's hard to say that Spurs won't, at the very least, concede goals.